Hello, and thank you everyone for joining Meera's Menopause podcast. And today's guest is, I have to say, we just had a little bit of a conversation before we started now and started recording. And to say that I am intrigued by what I'm going to learn and what Paula is going to share is kind of an understatement, I think, because this is a subject and a topic that I think is not given enough airtime. It's not given enough exposure, but also equally, I think there's not enough people that actually understand it. So I'm really hoping that Paula, with all her knowledge and everything she brings, will be able to just kind of help us explain and help us to understand the whole idea about hormone sensitivity when it comes in relation to women's health as a whole, but in particular for this episode, to do with menopause and those kind of stages of menopause and perhaps the build up even from puberty and, from childhood and all the way through. Because it's something that we're going to carry on through our lives. But actually, I think from the little bit that I've seen and listened to from your Instagram, Paula, I kind of was thinking, oh my goodness, yes was what I kept saying. So before I go any further, and I would love to introduce you to Paula. Paula, please could you introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us about yourself so that there's some context to today's episode.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me. So, at the moment, I would say that I am an author. I've written an evidence-based book, which is called Sensitive Women. And it's a trauma-informed approach to hormonal sensitivity. Now, my current background at the moment is I specialize in psychological trauma. So I cross over between trauma therapy and also trauma-informed coaching. But my previous background was in sports science. And this is really relevant because I first started to look at the brain and the nervous system from a performance and injury rehabilitation perspective. So I worked in Premier League football for a long time, crossing over with sports psychology and the integration of pain science. So it's kind of been a very long sort of journey, but it does cross over because what I'm suggesting is that some women have a more sensitive nervous system, and that is affecting hormonally sensitive periods, which is puberty, pregnancy, and the big one, perimenopause, the one that we're all talking about. And I believe that starts from the womb. I believe it starts from your mother's womb, and the fact that we have not looked at the way the nervous system develops and the trajectory of the nervous system throughout life. Then we get to perimenopause, and some women are having a real battle, a real struggle, right? My argument is against the simplicity of saying it's simply because you are, I don't know, estrogen deficient, right? I do not believe that that model is correct for a lot of women, and this is causing confusion because we have the sort of HRT sort of narrative that all women are estrogen deficient and therefore estrogen is the answer. And then we have the other side of that now, which is, well, you're testosterone deficient, so testosterone is now the new answer. It's so much more complex that it's almost got to the point that the oversimplification is causing side effects. It's causing side effects for women who don't understand why, and they're being told, you just need more hormones. that is a major problem, I think, for women.
I mean, gosh, yeah. I I hear exactly what you're saying, and I think for me, a lot of what you're saying resonates really, really strongly because of my own personal lived experience, but also equally because of the hundreds of women I've worked with, and the women that message me through, you know, the podcast and everything else, and the women that I work with as well. Because it isn't simple. That's the first thing. I
Yeah.
think total agreement with you that it is just not as simple as this or that. And I think the battle that we have, there's a lot there I want to go back to as well. But at the moment, and it's not just at the moment actually, for as long as I've been shouting out about menopause and trying to sit in a corner which is in a space that gives a voice to everyone so that women can make informed choices, and
Yeah.
there's very few of that, there's very little of that happening, very few people doing that.
Yeah.
Tends to be you're either this or you're that, and that's
Yeah.
what I've always said. This is completely wrong. I mean, even when I was at the APPG meeting, gosh, feels like many years ago, it must have been about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and it was about the holistic approach to menopause. You know, there was doctors, there was people we know in this field there who were very, very strongly pushing for HRT. And I understand why. I do. I get it, that is an option for people that if they wish to make an informed choice about it, they should. But it is about that informed choice, which is the
Yeah,
problem.
informed choice, which I
Informed
believe
choice.
is you can't
Yes.
make an informed choice
No.
if
If
you
you don't.
don't understand your
Exactly.
nervous system. This is my
Exactly.
argument, exactly
Yeah.
that. You cannot make
Yeah.
that informed choice, Meera,
No.
without understanding the individual nervous system. And that is
Right.
where I'm trying to go, to try to push forwards a
Yes.
wider conversation as opposed to
Yeah.
this very narrow conversation.
Yeah, and you're absolutely spot on. But the people who were invited to the table to talk about the holistic approach, and I was one of them, we were very much looked at like, you are absolute aliens. You know, who are you? And I think I got about a minute of time.
Really?
And in that minute of time, which was just appalling as far as I was concerned, I just basically said, actually, I'm sitting here at this table, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity, but I'm sitting here because of all of you. I said, because none of you have been there to support me as professionals in my time of need during this perimenopausal journey. I've never been given education. I've never been, there's just never a conversation that's been had. So actually, there was that space where it was just completely dismissed. Anything outside of HRT was completely dismissed.
Right.
I do feel like there are more people now talking more openly and widely about the experience of the perimenopausal years. But, and here is where I think, Paula, this is what you're saying is so relevant. There is a beginning of an inkling of people working in this space, whether they're medical professionals or practitioners or not, if they're actually working in this space for a good reason, realization that every woman's experience with this journey is so different, and every single thing impacts them completely differently. And the way I say it is because I'll say to them, well, it's because of your environment, the space you're in, your relationships, your, how people are accepting you, what you've been through before, all of that. And I use words like trauma, but I don't really know what I'm saying. And you're suddenly coming up here and saying something, and I'm going, whoa, is this making sense now suddenly? So I'm really just interested to understand, Paula, how did you kind of come to this situation from working with women? And it's interesting, right? Because you've worked with women, according to what you're saying, who were being injured and having that kind of trauma and pain, right? Yeah. And what we're going through is pain. We're going through pain. And I don't know whether that's even necessary. Should we be going through this pain? But it's interesting. How did you come to be in this position where you're in now with these thoughts and this book? Amazing.
Yeah. Again, complex journey. In a nutshell, 2017, started to experience heightened anxiety. I'd left my career in professional football. I was running a business with my husband. We had a lot of stress, a lot of stress. Started a new business and I started to feel really anxious. And look, this was 2017, way before menopause was mainstream. So there was not the information that we have now. And a friend said to me, you might be perimenopausal. I said, I don't care. I said, I need to survive. I need to keep going. What do I do? How do I fix it? And she said, well, why don't you look into HRT? That was my first foray into it. No idea. So I went to see a private menopause specialist. They prescribed me. The long and the short was they put me on a high dose of estrogen. I went off. I got worse. It got worse and it got worse. I went back. They doubled the dose.
Oh,
So, and then they added in testosterone. So I had low progesterone, I had high estrogen, and I had testosterone added in. So we don't have time to go into it. The kind of the sort of aftermath of that was horrific. I ended up over a year. I ended up suicidal. I ended up leaving my husband. I ended up leaving my child. I left my child because I grew up in an environment which was traumatic. I lived through childhood trauma, and I did not want to see my son. I didn't want him to see the arguments, the fighting, the chaos. And my mum also attempted suicide when I was 13. And I just had to get out. I was in a mess and I didn't know what was going on. And it's a bit like, as you say, if you don't know what's going on and you're trying to survive and all you're doing is pushing through, because a lot of us have a mentality of, let's just keep pushing. Now that works up until about perimenopause. And then that becomes, you just don't have the same resilience, which is what I'm explaining in my book. And so after I recovered, I mean, look, they thought I had cancer. Then I had to go through the hysteroscopies. And then it was then the medics started to say to me, your estrogen ratio is so high. Of course, I didn't understand it. So antidepressants, withdrawal, and then COVID. And when COVID came along, that was when I sort of stopped and I got off that treadmill and I sort of started thinking to myself, this doesn't make sense. What happened to me, And then I started a very complex process of mind mapping and pattern recognition, where I started to think, okay, well, look, did my childhood have anything to do? And I started to map. It started very small. And over the years, I just started to piece things together and I started to draw research. And I started to make a story out of research. And that is what originally started the concept of forming the book. But in between time, I started to speak publicly and I had so many women coming to me saying, I'm really struggling with side effects. So of course, I'm saying, well, so am I, but why is no one mentioning it? Like, it's almost like you're not allowed to say that you're having side effects. So this became a real point for me because I was having to take the energy on board of so many women coming to me saying, my anxiety's got worse. My anxiety's got worse. And they were being gaslighted by medics who were saying, take more. No, that is not the answer. And so women are becoming confused. They're never told it's your HRT regime. They're told it's a menopause symptom. It's not a menopause symptom. It's the HRT regime. So all this mess, if you can imagine, and that's really what started the whole process.
wow. Gosh, hearing your story, it kind of, A, I've got sort of goosebumps, but B, it's just so, it just always feels like it's so unnecessary for women to have to go through what we have to go through.
Yeah.
Because we're just not given that consideration. No one looks at us, no one believes us, no one kind of, really takes us seriously when we are saying things. And I think exactly what you've just said is that you do feel, and this is why I'm doing the podcast, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, is because I do see it, I do hear it. I have chosen not to take HRT, but because of the voice, and I chose not to take it because when I was going through it, the only choice was HRT that was not as researched as it is now, but it was not the HRT that is available now. So it was, we are talking old school. So it was just not a choice. I wasn't going to do it. No way, absolutely not. But equally, and I have then chosen not to take it from even from now on when there is an option to take it. And that's my own personal choice. But there is always this language and this the conversations and these voices in your head as well that go around saying, oh, you're not taking HRT, but you could get Alzheimer's. You're not taking HRT, you could get this. You're not taking HRT, you're going to get...
That's the new thing, isn't it, Meera? That's how it's moved on. It's moved on into disease prevention, and if you're not taking it, then you're going to crumble up and turn into dust and die.
And I think that's you see, for me, it's not for me to tell people what to do and what not to do, unless they come to work with me, and then I will tell them I think you should do this or not. But that's the bit that annoys me the most, is this whole thing of it's anything. Even if somebody says to you, take this, I don't know, ashwagandha, it's going to save your life. Well, actually, no, it may or may not. I don't know, but it's
exactly.
not. You haven't researched me and my body, and I think what I really, really love about what you're saying, and it strikes me, because that strikes me right here for me, is that it's an individual experience, right? And no one is looking at it as an individual experience. No one's looking at the trauma. No one's looking at what's happened in the past. No one's looking at you as an individual. They're just looking at you as, take 2 paracetamol, you'll be fine. But as you said, again, no one's believing you when you say, yeah, but the paracetamol isn't working. The HRT is not working. It's making me worse. It's making me whatever. I think, Paula, also, do you sort of, for yourself as well, and is this in your book? Because the book's going to come out, isn't it? It's due out soon.
Yeah, it's actually, my book at the moment is just being sent to, in the next week's been sent to medics and some scientists, because it's an argument. It's a strong argument against the biomedical model, and to go against the biomedical model and the systems and the structures that women have been subjected to. It is about opposing the simplicity. So therefore, I am asking medics and scientists to look at it from that perspective, because it's not a definitive. This is one of my objections, isn't it? If you pick up a menopause book these days, it's like the definitive guide. I mean, what to do? Who is it? Is it? How can you even say it's definitive? Even the arrogance of saying that you've written a definitive, you can't write a definitive guide about everybody's nervous system, because they're completely unique. So and to say that, what I say in my book is that we're being treated like Stepford wives. So it's like the Stepford wives approach that is straight out of the 1960s. We're not moving forwards. To keep telling women that a one size fits all approach is the way forwards, without understanding the nervous system and without having my argument a trauma-informed model, then you are not taking us forwards. You are taking us backwards. And in my opinion, and it's very strong, women are being brainwashed on social media.
No, they are. I mean, I sit in my space in social media, and quite often I want to give up, but I don't, because I just think, no, hold on a minute, there just needs to be somebody that's just talking about everything and giving people choices and giving people options. Of course, like you've just said today, which is kind of mind-blowing, is whilst we think it's informed choice, is it really? Because that's exactly what you're kind of saying, right? That so then how do we unravel that? How do we know? How do we know how our nervous system has been impacted? How do we, where do we go with this information? How do we get the information firstly? So how do I know how it's impacting me? And then what do I do with it?
Yeah, this is the issue, which is why I've done the book. The book is a map to help women to understand potentially their own nervous system, right? Because I'm trying to argue that you cannot be empowered, you cannot have agency, you cannot make informed choices and decisions if you're giving your power to someone on social media. And what you're seeing a lot of is women who are advising women. So you'll see it where it's like, oh, just up your estrogen. Oh, just add in testosterone. Oh, now that in itself is extremely dangerous, because you're talking about a psychoactive medication that impacts mood, cognition, behavior, and epigenetics.
Yeah.
Now, to make it very simple, I'm saying some women have a more sensitive nervous system. This starts way back before puberty, right? So when we're looking at things like PMDD, we're looking at PMS, PMDD, they're all on spectrums. Everything's on a spectrum. I'm combining ADHD. I'm looking at autism. I'm suggesting that it's the trajectory of the nervous system, which is very complicated, through your life, that when you arrive at perimenopause, for example, we've got 100% rise in women being diagnosed with ADHD.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? Yeah. My argument is, and it's an argument, it's an argument, it's not a definitive. It's putting forwards a new perspective, is that those genetics, those heritable genetics, those heritable traits, right? They are there from the beginning.
Yes.
Right? The way that they manifest and the way that they show up, there is no definitive blood test that says you're ADHD. We don't have genes that say, but I've identified some nervous system components that I believe contribute to nervous system sensitivity. And I'm saying ADHD, autism, highly sensitive people, these are adaptive nervous systems that started way back from evolution. They're not disorders. They're gene sets that were there to help survival. Does that make sense? It's not.
Yes.
And again, I'm arguing against the biomedical model in the sense of disorders. ADHD disorder, or it's not a disorder. It's the way that you are wired, but it would have been wired to be productive. That's why we've all got different brains and different nervous systems, because we would have had to survive in tribes. And I'm arguing against this whole labeling, pathologizing, making women, comes into perimenopause now, doesn't it? Where we're basically saying, if you don't take this medication, then you are going to get dementia. You're going to die of a disease. This is over pathologizing the nervous system. Yeah. And this is where I think we're in dangerous territory, because you've got women now saying, I have to take HRT, even though I've got no symptoms, which, by the way, I don't believe are hormonal symptoms. I think it's nervous system dysregulation. It's nervous system dysregulation. I've evidenced this in my book. But women are then saying, well, if I don't take estrogen, then I am going to have these risks. I am going to say now, if you don't understand estrogen in context with the nervous system, these medics are saying estrogen is anti-inflammatory. And it's like this one-size marketing campaign. It's anti-inflammatory. It's not. It's not anti-inflammatory if your nervous system is wired for higher excitation. And this is one of the things I'm arguing, that you cannot blanket say that it's anti-inflammatory, because it isn't. It depends on the nervous system. Some of us have higher ratios of estrogen.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to add in more histamine, for example. You'll see women like me that have histamine responses. I had a huge histamine response because I was overprescribed estrogen.
Yeah.
If you're having a histamine response, that is a sign of higher inflammation, right?
Yes.
That's higher estrogen. The last thing you want to do is to pump your body full of more estrogen.
Mm.
Does that make sense? It's just not
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. No. It does make sense, and I think we just go back to that thing of that individual approach,
exactly.
and I am 100% all for that. You know, even the programs I run, everything I do is very much about making sure that you as an individual, based on your lifestyle, based on your family circumstances, based on what is going on around your environment, all of it is, you know, your thoughts, how your mindset is. It's very
100%.
much how
Your psyche.
what
This is the
absolutely it
thing I'm
feeds
asking about.
in.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
made
and
up
it's
of multiple
yeah,
systems.
yeah.
You're not
No,
just, oh, low estrogen. You
no,
know, it
and
just drives me crazy.
it's really interesting because what I have found is that when women are going through these perimenopause and menopausal years, and this is what's happened to me, is I've had to completely 360 flip everything for what I was. So the person I
Yeah.
was is not the person I am, and I don't even know how I was that person. But what I do know is I was surviving for a very, and it looked like I was thriving, but I was surviving. And I've had to completely change everything from the type of exercise I do to the type of food I eat to the way I think. Everything has had to completely change into this person that actually the reason I was having the difficulty as well was because I was resisting the change because I didn't understand who I was
Yep.
and I didn't understand who I was becoming.
Yep.
And I'm much more comfortable now postmenopausally
Same.
without my HRT, except for vaginal estrogen. I am having that because that is definitely helping me. But it's localized, it's there. But going back to that, I am this person. I'm much more comfortable with who I am. I really, but it's because I've made those changes. And would you sort of just kind of, because we've had a lot of kind of discussion and really thrown some ideas out there, which are big ideas.
Yeah.
Is there a way of dealing with it then? Would you say, is there a way of dealing with perimenopause, menopause, and this trauma? How do we get to a point where, like you just said, right? If we're choosing not to take HRT, or we're making an informed choice not to have HRT, what do we do? How do we help ourselves? You know, what is there out there for us?
Well, there's quite a lot of things out there that are not being spoken about, in my opinion. One of the things that I think we need to understand is that trauma is not what people think it is. I mean, my book traces it from attachment. So your nervous system is being shaped through, and your hormonal profile is being shaped right from the womb, right? And so attachment processes, understanding safety in the body. And when we talk about safety in the body, for example, if I grew up, which I did, with parents who were emotionally unavailable, emotionally dysregulated, narcissistic traits, I'm growing up in a family environment where my nervous system is being shaped to be more hypervigilant, right?
Absolutely.
This is the thing that people are not, no one's talking about it. That's the biology. There is a biology to this, as well as the psychology and the psyche. So when we understand that trauma is stored within the body, we know then that things like now that you want to work with the body. So you want to be doing things like nervous system regulation, but I'm going to talk about that in a more science-based way. One of the things that is now being evidenced, which takes me back to my football times, is heart rate variability. And this is my heart rate variability training, right? Now, why are we not talking about this? This heart rate variability training is accessible, right, to all women. When we look at the nervous system, what we're doing is a bit like when you're doing your strength training. We're strength training the nervous system to be more resilient, not to relax, because say for example, you're a really busy woman and someone says to you, you need to meditate. Oh my God, no, I can't do that, right? Or do yoga. No, I don't want to do yoga. Right. So instead of trying to calm down, what we actually need to focus on is increasing stress resilience. So increasing your window of capacity to tolerate stressors, because we live very busy, stressful lives now, don't we? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when we think about hormonal changes are internal stressors. That's what they are to the body and the brain. It's a threat. It's a threat, right? So when we look at training heart rate variability and the vagus nerve and vagal tone, I don't know if you've heard of that. I'm always conscious some people haven't. What you're doing is you're increasing your window of tolerance. You're increasing your nervous system flexibility to be able to tolerate stress. And the bigger and wider your window of tolerance, and the more flexible your nervous system is to go between sympathetic fight, flight, freeze, then you have got more resilience. And one of the things I think we're not actually promoting is resilience, stress resilience, not stress reduction. Of course, that has its place, right? But if you start saying to people, you need to reduce your stress, and they're saying, I can't, I've got 3 kids. You know,
Yeah. How do I do it? Yeah, I get that. I get told that all the time.
you're getting that resistance, aren't you? But if we start saying you need to increase your stress capacity and your resilience to stress, you can start doing that through heart rate variability training.
That's amazing.
And
And
that
what
is
does that
evidence,
mean?
Meera.
What is it? Is it? Sorry, do you have time to explain that briefly?
Yeah.
Because it's fascinating. Because I get this all the time, right? Including for myself, but my daughters and my clients. It's just like, yeah, but how do you? I mean, I can't switch that off. I can't just not go to work, Meera. I'm like, okay, that's true.
Yeah.
So
So
love to
in an ideal world, to give it a little bit more context. So say I used to work in professional football, right? So working in professional football with men, but what would happen is they would train every day. And when they went out to train, they would wear GPS vests. They'd wear vests that are monitoring their heart rate. They're putting them, so then you'd get the data and it would say, this player here is in the red zone. So think about it. A lot of us live in the red zone, what I call the red zone, the higher sympathetic fight flight, right? That's
Yes.
almost like your home state. Women like
That's it.
me have lived like that all their lives.
That's right. Yes.
Survival, right?
Yeah.
So what would happen is in football, they'd take the data and they'd say, this player's getting into the red zone. That means this, more risk of injury, right?
Yeah.
More risk of injury, more risk of putting him out there and him having an injury. So what you do is you'd say, right, we need to rest him. So what you do is say, right, instead of putting him out there to train tomorrow, we're going to rest and recover. That's your other side, your nervous system, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, you're in the red zone. You're pushing, you're pushing. In order to give you your battery back, you're going to have to recover
Yeah.
in order to give you more to go back up, right? And this thing about, so HRV training is basically that. So instead of you having to think, oh, I've got to sit here and do nothing and do meditation and breathe, I use Heart Math, which is an app. And that's got data to it. That's you don't need to use that. I just like data. So you can use your Apple Watch. You do heart rate variability training. I'm not sure how reliable it is, but what you want is to understand that if you're in the red zone, if your heart rate variability is low, which I'm telling you from evidence, women like me who are more sensitive to stress, we have low HRV. That means that we don't handle stress as well, right? So HRV training is now being recognized within hormonal sensitivity. No one's talking about it. If you've got low heart rate variability, you want to train that, and you want to use something like, you can use your Apple Watch. I don't know, I don't use one, but you could, right? You can use Heart Math. You can look that up. You can use, you can buy like a monitor that you've got with apps, and it's just training. It's a bit like you doing your strength training. Add it into your routine. I mean, I do 10 minutes a day. It's absolutely a game changer, because if you wake up in the morning and you're higher in your sort of fight flight state, you get up, and we all know you don't eat, you maybe grab a coffee, right? You're already then starting the day in the red zone.
Yeah.
Right? And the more you're in that red zone, when we were younger, I would operate in that high functioning anxiety all the time. When you hit perimenopause, that's when it just absolutely tanks. And that's your nervous system saying, I've had enough. I'm running on empty. You've been living in survival mode all your life. You're pushing against the system. I'm going to now give you these symptoms that are going to say to you, you need to start listening. And
Yeah.
that's what symptoms are.
Yeah.
That's what symptoms are. Messages from the body to
Oh,
say to you,
100%.
stop,
Yeah.
before I have to scream at you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is more important, in my opinion, to prevent disease than anything else, because we already have the research. Women with a trauma history, higher stress sensitivity, PTSD, carrying trauma in their body, autoimmune disease. We now know that stress and trauma is
Linked.
what we
Yeah.
should be focusing on. In my opinion, we should be focusing on that, because hormones, I just have to say this, your reproductive hormones are secondary, right? Because survival comes first,
Yes.
reproduction comes second. Even if you
Yeah.
look at basic biology, which none of these doctors seem to be doing, they've almost reversed it round. It's almost like, yeah, but reproductive hormones are the most. They're not. They're not, are they? Because
No.
survival always trumps reproduction. So if
Yeah.
you've got high stress levels, high cortisol, high adrenaline, high histamine, high glutamate, you're going to have symptoms. End of. It's nervous
Yeah.
system symptoms, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my argument.
Yeah. Paula, it's honestly, it's been fascinating. I knew it would be. I knew it'd be fascinating chatting to you, and I would learn so much. And a lot of what you're saying has really solidified what I see and the people I work with, the actual individual people I work with. And I'm really glad, actually, I feel like I'm doing the right things for the people that I work with,
Yeah.
in ensuring that they, well, that they, above all, start. One of the phrases I use is, your body is talking to you. Your
Yeah.
brain is frazzled, so don't listen to it a lot of the time, but your body is
Your body
telling
never
you
lies.
loud and clear
Yep.
what's wrong. And you and the other day I had, and and it is interesting because it's not an easy thing to do for
No.
people to change. It really isn't. And what I also see is people go through little waves. So they'll kind of do this bit, then they'll resort back. Then they won't go as far back as they were, but then they'll go forward again, and they resort back. And we keep doing this little game for a while. And the other day, my client said to me, she said, my body's talking to me. I'm like, yes. I literally was like, she said, and I'm actually hearing it now. I'm hearing what it's saying. I'm like, thank God. Right, now you can start to think about doing things yourself rather than me saying to you,
Yeah.
do you think that, that kind of glass of wine or whatever it was, or the coffee or whatever it may be, I don't even know, or the argument, whatever it was, the late night, do you think that could have been, that could have, it's actually not it's not your menopause, it's actually that situation that's creating symptoms that are doing this. So, I mean, I have absolutely learnt so much talking to you, Paula. What's the name of your book, and do you know when it's going to be out? Because I would love you to promote your book, and I'd love also, because it's fascinating on Instagram. I've been literally kind of listening to it. I've been going, oh my God, that's so interesting. Oh my God. So could you please share the details of your book, when it's going to be out, and where people can find you on socials, website, or whatever?
Yeah, so the best platform for me is Instagram, and it's at Mrs. Paula Rastrick. So I'm also on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook as well under the same name. The book is called Sensitive Women, a trauma-informed, neurodiverse approach to hormonal sensitivity. And it will be this year, but I can't give a specific date. The best thing to do is to follow me on social media, and then obviously join my newsletter. I've got resources. That's the other thing as well. I've got resources on my website that you can have, and join my newsletter. And yeah, watch this space, because I'm sort of taking some time out at the moment to preserve my energy, because this is a massive conversation and it's
Yeah.
going against a lot of structures, systems that I'm going to disrupt. And when you start to disrupt systems and medical systems and start pushing back, then it takes a lot of energy. But coming on here and you saying this makes sense, means we have more collective energy, because women need to be empowered. And I
Mm,
believe that we're being disempowered.
yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I keep saying, I think for me, it's that whole thing again, whether you say this way or you say that way, or you say do this or you say do that. Again, women's voices are being taken away from them and they're not being seen. And I think that for me, that is where it's the that's where it has to change. And you are right. It does take an awful amount of energy to go against the grain, because you know in your deep down in your gut, and you've got research. I'm just going by gut instinct and what I see. But you've got the research to say there's more to this.
Yeah.
This is just oversimplified. There's more to this. And again, I sit quietly and I help and support one woman at a time and one thing at a time. And, I do it that way in my own little way. But I have learned so much from our conversation today. And it really, really has been a pleasure chatting with you, because I feel, as I said, I feel like, oh, right. It was for me, it was the moment when I read The XX Brain by Dr. Lisa Moscone, when I started to hear what she was saying about how the brain is different and looking at all of those things. And it suddenly dawned on me. And then she was talking about diet and all of that. I suddenly was like, oh my goodness, I've been doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing. And this conversation has been exactly the same for me. I'm now feeling more empowered to continue to share voices like yours, but also to keep going on about that individual approach, and each person being so different. So I
Yeah.
really would like to
I
thank
think
you for
even if we
that.
just if we just stripped it back and understood that you cannot be the same as the person next to you, and if Jane's saying you should take testosterone, you shouldn't be taking that advice. It's not sound advice if you don't
No,
understand your own nervous system and your
no,
brain,
absolutely.
And I just
And
find
it
that
makes, yeah,
it's
it
just
makes
wrong.
sense to you and me, Paula. It makes sense to you and me, but you would be amazed at the number of people that I speak to that say, yeah, but so and so was taking it, so I thought it'd be really good for me. And I'm just like, okay, but you're not them. So to you and I, that makes
Yeah.
complete sense. And I think that's because we've been through this journey
Yeah,
and
and I've
this
lived,
lived
yeah, and
experience.
I've done it the hard way. I've had to come through the experience, myself, in order to sort of talk about it. I just want to make it clear, it's not anti-HRT. None of
No,
it,
no,
and it's not
absolutely.
anti anything. It's
No, no.
pro-informed consent. And
Yeah,
and women, in my opinion, are not actually going through proper informed consent, because they're
no,
not being treated individually. They're being
no.
treated like Stepford wives. I don't care what anyone says, even
Yeah,
private clinics. Just because you're paying for it doesn't mean that you're getting an individualized approach.
no,
You're just
no.
paying more to have hormones. No woman I've spoken to who's had side effects has ever said to me, "Oh well, I had a bespoke service." The only answer is always take more. And
Mm,
sometimes it's not about taking more. It's about
mm,
stopping and saying, maybe this is too much.
yeah. Paula, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for talking to me today. I just would like to say to all our listeners, please, if you have enjoyed this conversation as much as I have, please do like, share, and follow the podcast. And let me know if there's other things that you would like to talk about, if you'd like other guests on. I would love to know more about that as well. But in the meantime, Paula, thank you so much for speaking to me today and taking the time.
Thank you.